You know that feeling when you're on your way somewhere familiar, maybe driving home late or taking a ride, and suddenly everything feels wrong? What if the fear wasn't just in abandoned places, but right there with you, or following close behind? These are stories about moments like that. It was New Year's Eve, and I was driving out to a party at my friend Darren's house. He lived out on some dark country roads, the kind where trees press in close on both sides. It was cold, the air biting, which made the bumpy roads even less fun. I usually hate using my high beams, but out here you needed them just to see the twists and turns ahead. There wasn't much out here, just dark woods and one old shack I sometimes saw lights on in, even though it looked empty. A few minutes into the drive, on a straight stretch, my lights hit something up ahead, something white, against the darkness near the trees. As I got closer, I saw it was a person, just standing there on the side of the road, standing still, not hiding, just facing the trees. It was a woman in a white dress or gown, definitely not dressed for the cold night air. I kept my high beams on, making it hard to see details beyond the glare off the white fabric. I passed her, relieved she didn't step into the road, thinking maybe she was another guest who got dropped off early. But then I looked in my rear-view mirror. In the red glow of my back lights, I saw she had turned her whole body. She was still standing in the same spot, but she was facing the road now, watching me drive away. It was incredibly creepy. I was glad I hadn't stopped. There was no way that was just another party guest. I made it to the party without anything else happening and had a good time. We watched the ball drop, celebrated, and people slowly started leaving. I stayed late, helping Darren's family clean up. By the time I got in my car to leave, I was the last one there. I started the engine, and a low tire pressure light came on. My car does that when it gets cold fast. I figured it was fine. I could make it home. I thought about that woman on the road. Was she still out there? There was another way home, longer. But it avoided that road. It was late, though, and I didn't want the extra drive. I decided to just take the same way back. I really regret that choice. Not even a few minutes out, I felt it, then heard it, a scraping sound, like bare metal on the pavement. My car slowed, then stopped completely. Something was seriously wrong. Against better judgment, I got out to check. I turned the engine off, the car lights went out, and I was plunged into the deep darkness of the woods around me. I used my phone light to check the tires. My heart sank. Every single tire was completely destroyed, ripped to shreds, like something had clawed them apart. One flat tire I could understand, maybe, but all four? This was planned. I stood there feeling helpless. No one would be out here now. I couldn't call for help. There was no phone service this far out, just as I was about to get back in the car. The slight wind died down. The branches stopped moving. Even the sounds of the woods went silent. I froze. I'd never heard silence like that. Time seemed to stop. Then the sound of a twig snapping somewhere in the trees. Something was moving nearby. I instantly turned my phone light off. Total darkness. Leaves rustled on the ground as something moved closer, moving quietly through the forest. It wasn't a small animal. The silence felt like prey feels when a predator is near. Then I heard it. A soft voice from the pitch-black trees, maybe 15 feet away. "I see you," my breath caught. I couldn't even make a sound. It was a woman's voice, quiet, without anger, which made it even scarier. All I wanted was to just collapse and disappear. Then I heard it again. "Can you see me?" Hearing the voice a second time finally shocked my body into action. I was disoriented in the dark, but I knew I had to see where to run. I turned my phone light back on, pointing it straight ahead. Standing at the edge of the tree line was the woman in the white gown. This time I saw her clearly. The dress was filthy, covered in dark stains. She was incredibly pale, very thin. Her messy gray hair hung down long, but her face, it was hard to describe, disturbing, like part of her jaw was missing. Still, she seemed to be trying to grin at me. In my shocked state, I held the light on her for just a few seconds before I turned and ran as fast as I could back the way I came, towards Darren's house. The old shack was closer the other way, but what if she lived there? I didn't stop to think. I just ran. I heard twigs snapping and leaves rustling behind me. She was chasing me through the woods, but the adrenaline surged and I somehow managed to lose her. I sprinted all the way back to Darren's house, ignoring the rest of the neighborhood, and pounded on their door, begging them to open up. His mother answered, saw how terrified I was, and pulled me inside quickly. I explained everything to her, Darren and his father. They were understanding, letting me stay the night and calling the police and a tow truck. I gladly accepted. The police said they'd check the road and the area that night, and I could give a statement and get my car tomorrow. All I wanted was to sleep and forget the night. But the night wasn't over. I woke up later to a light tapping sound coming from the second-story window. I looked at the clock on the nightstand, 3:14 a.m. The guest room windows didn't have curtains. I didn't dare look out. Then I heard a muffled voice from outside, the same quiet voice from the woods. I see you. She was still out there. She had followed me all the way here and was trying to get my attention. If I wasn't looking out before, I definitely wasn't now. I stayed in that bed, eyes wide open, until the sun came up and Darren's family woke up. Thankfully, she was gone then. I told them about the tapping and the voice. We all looked outside together. Just as the police arrived in the yard, Darren's father found something near the house where I heard the voice. A large, rusty knife. It looked like it could have been used to slash my tires. That meant she had followed my car to the party earlier that night and had been waiting. She was targeting me when everyone else was inside. Darren's parents called other guests. One friend said they'd seen someone in a white dress walking around outside earlier, but thought it was just another guest. When I gave my statement to the police, I told them about the shack on the road, suggesting they check there. They reportedly did, and told me later they found no one living there, but there was disturbing evidence of dead animals around the woods nearby. The woman was never found. There are so many questions. How did she track me so quickly after I left the party? How did she speak so clearly if her face was so injured? After what happened, I still go to Darren's house for New Year's Eve, but I make sure to carpool now, and we always take the long way around, avoiding that road at night. But sometimes the danger feels close from the very beginning, right inside a vehicle you thought was safe. Think about landing after a late flight. Midnight has passed. You're tired, just want to get home. I grabbed a taxi at the airport. The driver seemed fine, offered a good price. I put my bag on the seat beside me. We started the drive. It was about a half-hour ride with no traffic. We got on the highway, moving fast. A couple times, I caught the driver looking at me in the mirror. The second time, he started asking questions. Where was I coming from? San Diego. What was I doing there? Visiting a friend. Then he asked, "Is your friend as pretty as you?" It was a creepy comment. He kept asking strange, flirty questions, like what a pretty girl like you was doing traveling alone. I responded, maybe a little sassy, saying I wasn't alone, I was visiting a friend. He said by flying alone, I was traveling alone. We went back and forth a bit. He laughed and said he was teasing. He seemed maybe around 45. It felt uncomfortable, him hitting on a young woman alone in his taxi late at night. I'd dealt with weird comments before, but this felt different. We kept going down the highway. I saw the familiar overpass near my exit, but he wasn't slowing down. We passed it. I said, "This is my exit." We zoomed right by. I said it again, louder. He mumbled an apology, said he'd get the next one, about a mile further. I tried to see his GPS screen, but it was angled away. As the next exit came up, I said loud and clear, "You need to get off here." Without saying anything, he turned his blinker on and took the exit. I saw him glare at me in the mirror for a second, maybe annoyance, but then he asked if I had a boyfriend. I answered instantly, "Yes, he lives with me." I saw him look at me again. I think he noticed how fast I replied. Then he asked what my boyfriend's name was. I'm serious. That felt like too much. It felt like he was trying to figure something out. I told him I was putting my headphones in, and I did, though they were dead. I just needed him to stop talking. Asking my boyfriend's name felt next level creepy. I texted my family and close friends about the driver, sharing my location. We were in a familiar part of my town now, stopped at a red light. I looked in the mirror again. All I saw were his eyes staring with this really intense, almost scary look. He didn't say anything. The light turned green, and he was still staring. I had to tell him the light was green. He started driving again. None of my close family replied except my older brother, who lives 2 hours away. He told me I should get out of the car if I felt unsafe. We were on a main road, but it was empty. It was close to a.m. on a weeknight. We stopped at another red light. I felt that stare again. Then I saw a police car parked in an empty lot nearby. I made a quick decision. I grabbed my bags, slid the van door open. The driver yelled, "What are you doing?" He tried to close the door with the power button up front, but I held it open. The second it was wide enough, I ran. I sprinted towards the police car. Instead of getting out and chasing me, he just kept driving. That was a huge red flag. Seeing him drive away, I slowed to a fast walk towards the police car. The officer saw me, rolled down his window. I told him the taxi driver was giving me bad feelings and I left for safety. I asked if he could give me a ride home. Thankfully, he said yes. I got in the back seat. Being a scared woman probably helped. But I don't think you should just ask cops for rides like that. The taxi was long gone by then. The officer drove me home. It was only about a 5 or 10 minute ride. I went inside. I didn't even unpack, just got ready for bed and crashed. Just as I was about to fall asleep, there was a knock at my front door. What if it was the taxi driver? He had my address. What if he came for the money? Or something worse? The knocking went on for a few minutes, stopped, then started again. I stayed in my room, not going near the door. The door was locked, that was what mattered. Eventually, the knocking stopped, and I finally fell asleep. The next day, I was back at work. My neighbor, George, called me. He said my dad had been by earlier, trying to get into my apartment to drop something off, but he didn't have a key. George wanted to check if I was expecting my dad. I said no, I hadn't heard from him. George said he didn't see him actually leave anything, just looking through the windows. I thanked him. I called my real dad. He was at work and had not been by my place. I told my dad about the entire taxi driver situation. He wanted me to come home for a few nights, and I said I would. I just needed to pack. After work, I got home around p.m. I did some laundry and packed a bag. Something in my apartment felt off. I usually feel fine alone, but that night it felt like I wasn't. I thought it was just nerves from the taxi thing, but I kept hearing small creaking sounds on the wood floor, like footsteps. I couldn't tell where they were coming from. I was starting to freak myself out, trying to hurry up and leave the moment I was ready to go. I heard a distinct creak from down the hallway, from the spare bedroom. I turned. A voice said, "I wasn't going to hurt you." Then I saw an arm swing into view from behind the wall. I just took off. I ran to the front door before he could even fully step into the hallway. I was outside, screaming, pounding on my neighbor George's door. It was still early enough they were awake. George and his wife came rushing out, and I begged for help. Instead of going inside my apartment, we called 911 and waited for the police. My apartment wasn't big, so checking hiding spots didn't take long. The back sliding door to the shared yard was open, which meant he probably left that way. I didn't have info on the taxi ride, no number, no plate, just that it was a yellow minivan and a description of the man. I told them the route and the time I got into town, hoping maybe they could check local business cameras. I grabbed my packed bags and went to my parents' house. I stayed for a week. They wanted me to stay longer, but I had to get back. My dad helped me put cameras on my front and back doors. I got something for self-defense to keep by my bed. I've lived in 2 different apartments since then. I haven't had to use the taser. I avoid taxis now if I'm alone. Ride-sharing apps are easier to track. You hear about fake taxi drivers doing bad things. I still wonder if he was a real taxi driver at all, or if he was just using a stolen vehicle. These are just 2 terrifying journeys, moments where the destination felt less important than escaping the threat. They show how danger can hide in plain sight or follow you home, leaving a lasting shadow of fear and questions that may never be answered.